Hello and welcome. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live. I'm Geraldine Wilkins, the Living Water Quilter, and we have a special Quilt Conversations Live for you. We're going to talk about art quilts, but in particular, we're going to look at stitching stories, how we can use quilts to help share the stories in our life. And I have a special guest that's going to join us, but I want to say hello to all the Quilt Conversations Live ladies. Hello, Lori. So glad that you're here. Aloha. So glad to see you. How have you been? How are things going for you? Are you working on a project? Are you back in school already? And let's see, Kimberly is here. Welcome from Maryland. Hello, Kimberly. So glad that you're here. Are you ladies interested in art quilts? Is that something that you like to do, that you have made, that you want to learn more about? Let us know in the chat about your experience with art quilts and what you think an art quilt is. Yay! Wonderful. So glad that you're here. All right, we are going to have a special guest, like I mentioned, and her name is Renee Fleuranges-Valdes. She is an amazing, award winning art quilter. I'm going to read a little bit of her bio, but I'm going to save the best stuff for her to share with you directly. She's a fiber artist known for the use of vibrantly colored fabrics, intricate machine quilting designs, and her artistry centers around her love of life. For inspiration, she draws from her rich multicultural background. Hello, Sharon. How are you? And Rochelle is here. Welcome, welcome. Renee's goal is to share joy in her art. And we're going to talk about that tonight. She loves helping others to color their life one quilt at a time. She's been quilting for over 20 years and she's displayed her work throughout the United States in quilt shows, galleries, museums, and her artwork is a part of many public and private collections. Hello, Marsha. Welcome, welcome. I'm excited to bring to you. I don't think we should delay because I'm excited to share more about who Renee Fleuranges-Valdes is as an artist, and you will be inspired by her work. Let's bring her. Hello, Renee. Welcome to Quilt Conversations Live.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me, Geraldine. It really is an honor to be here with you and your Quilt Conversations Live guest.
Well, it is my pleasure for sure, and I know the ladies would like to learn more about you and your journey as a quilter. And some of the things that I've looked at in terms of your journey as a quilter, you didn't start off as a professional quilter. You were in the corporate business world, but you were inspired by some family members when it came to making clothing and quilts. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So, yes, I'm recently retired. I say recently because compared to the retired life versus my 38 years in the software industry, 4 years to me is still recent. But I am retired from the software industry. I worked for 38 years for IBM and various roles: sales, marketing, business development, and loved the life, but it was extremely stressful. So I think all of us know that we look for things to relieve a stress when you're in stressful situations. And I decided that doing something for me was the way to do that. And so I decided to sort of fall back on what had been my childhood joy. As you said earlier, I like finding joy in life. And as a young teenager, I did all type of needlecraft. I knit, I crochet, I needlepoint. I actually designed needlepoint canvases in seventh grade. Um, I did it all, but mostly so because as the youngest of 4 girls, didn't want hand-me-downs. So if you didn't want hand-me-downs, you had to learn to sew. And so I would sew. I actually remember even in college, I made all of my own clothes. Graduation suit, a walking suit, that line, long jacket, the pants, the shirt, the vest. I made it all. And, just touching and playing with fabric was always a joy. So when the stress hit in late 1999, I said to some of my friends who were sitting in the office, it was 7 o'clock on a Friday night, all complaining about the workload. Well, let's do something for us. And so I'd always loved quilts. I had a friend whose mom had quilted when I was young. Fortunately, she had since passed, so I couldn't learn directly from her. But she was a strong influence in my life. And so we went to the neighborhood quilt shop and learned how to quilt. 4 of us signed up. 3 of us actually did the class. I'm the only one who still quilts 20 years later.
Wow, what an interesting journey. When we have family members and family friends come into our life young as teenagers and introduce us to a craft, it can have a lasting impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. My aunt was a peacemaker in the Garment District in Manhattan. And for those of you who don't know what a peacemaker is she worked in the lingerie industry, and so her job was to sew slips and slip after slip after slip after slip. And because she did pieces, she was able to bring it home and work on evenings and weekends for extra money. And they were actually paid by the number of pieces that they created. Peacemaker. So she would actually pay me. I was in grammar school to sit on the floor at her feet, and as how we string quilt, but as she string pieced, I cut the threads
Wow.
in between the pieces and did her cleanup work. And that's how I learned to sew. So between her and my girlfriend's mother, I got pretty good with the needle and thread.
Wow, that is a inspiration. I love having that part of our history to share with others, that sometimes we might be introduced to something early and have to put it aside for a while for family, for work, and other responsibilities, but we can always go back to that. And as you mentioned, 4 of you went, learned how to quilt. You're the only one still quilting. What helped you stay motivated in the art of quilting? Did you start off with art quilts?
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. If I had stayed as a traditional quilter, because that's what the class was that we went to take, I don't think I'd still be quilting. Um, um, you know, let's be honest. First of all, when my girlfriend's mother passed, she literally packed up a box as we were cleaning out the house and said, "This is for you." So it sat in my home for a couple of years before I even had the courage to start digging through and see if I was going to use it. But she was a hand piecer, hand quilter, very traditional quilter. And I started out that way. That's the class I took. Um, I made king bedspreads. I made queen quilts. I made lap quilts. I made, oh my gosh, I made baby kits quilts up the Yahoo because I was young. So all of my friends were young. My plethora of the cousins were young. But come on, how many of those can you make?
Yes.
And so I decided I was going to go ahead and take a class there was a quilt shop less than a mile down the road from the office. And I took a class there, and it was from Kay England's Quilts from Africa, her book, and it was a dancer. Oh my God, that was it. That was it. I was hooked. Hooked. For years, people called me the dancer quilter because that's all I did was dances.
Wow, amazing. What was it that inspired you?
Well, being raised in New York City, we all were always on, well, not New York City, I was 30 minutes north, but we were always in the city. Um, Alvin Ailey, American Ballet Theater, um, Harlem Dance Company, and Broadway in itself. So, and we love musicals. And so to go to the theater and watch those bodies move, they were graceful, they were powerful, right? And so for me, Bill, welcome to the art quilter. Hey, Marsha. um, to me, just watching and thinking about the dedication you have to have as a dancer, right, to keep your body toned, to keep your body limber, to perfect the flow, right? I couldn't do it. And so they were a big inspiration. I'm a curvy woman. God knows, we'll talk about that series later, but I'm a curvy woman, and I know I could never look like them. I love to dance, but I could never dance like them. So they were my inspiration for a long time. My first dance pieces, they were all so thin and graceful and curvy. There was no chunky movements, but it was beauty, right?
Yes.
And as a heavy set child, um, Renee and beauty didn't always come into the same sentence. And so looking at the dances, pretending to be them, and then creating them. Everyone says that I play with paper dolls as an adult. Excuse me, paper dolls as a child, but fabric dolls as an adult. Right? And being
Oh,
able to create my own and decide what she's wearing, accessorize her because I'm a big jewelry hound. So all of my dances had jewelry. I was in my own little world, right? And I could forget about the responsibility of being a wife, being a mother, being the sandwich generation, taking care of my children and my grandfather, and then my father as he got ill, and my mom as she got ill. I was the one that all of that fell upon. And so, as I said, you needed the stress reliever, and I looked to what made me happy, right? And at the time, dancing was probably the biggest influence, even though I never danced as a child, never took a single dance class.
well, this is a fascinating turn because you did traditional quilts, that's what you were taught, but then your joy and love of dance that gave you that calm relaxation from the responsibilities of life, gave you that rest, if you will. Now it was time to marry those two together. Did you take additional classes? How did you begin? If the ladies here in the chat who want to begin as an art quilter, how do they take their passion? What did you do and start making
Everyone
art
asked me
quilts?
if I took a lot of art quilting classes. I did not. I went to quilt shows. I traveled extensively for work. My office was my kitchen table and the airplane. So, wherever I went, I made sure I went to museums, I went to quilt shows, and I went to see dancers. And those became my teachers. I took a lot of pictures. And as time went on, I realized I needed to start sketching. So at one point, I had my sketchbook probably closer to me than my phone was. And for those of you who know me, that seems to be impossible because I always have my phone. But I still always have a little book, right? And whether it's a
Ah,
curve of a line, whether it is a hand, right? I'll snap a picture of a billboard if something in that billboard just speaks to me. And then I practice it in my little book. And it won't be a whole quilt. I never, ever sketch out a whole quilt. So don't be afraid to find inspiration anywhere you go. If you see something you like, snap a picture of it, because you will always be able to use that picture as inspiration. Sometimes it will have a calming effect. You won't even ever do anything with it, right? But it will also be a learning tool. All right, take out that picture, look at that hand. All right, I remember first trying to draw an artist's foot. Oh my gosh, that's hard because of the way the angle they're on their toes, and oh my goodness. So I literally just started doing screenshots and only capturing the foot, just the foot, and practice, 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 because it makes it better. Now, I will tell you, since I retired in the last couple of years, I have taken uh, three of Hollis Chardonn's um, drawing classes, her faces classes, and her basic drawing 1 and 2, because there are technical elements that have allowed me to shorten the time to take a sketch to an image. Let's see, which way do I need to move? All right. So, what's the right um, balance? 5 eyes across the face,
Okay,
right?
let me you want to show that? I can set that up so that we can get a close up of that. Let's take a
Oh,
look. Here we go. So let's talk about this as an example.
so if you look, right, look at the fingers. Now, this is a work in progress, but how do you figure out where do the hands turn? How do each of the fingers come, right? What size is a right hand? Did you know if you went from your chin and took your hand up to your forehead, your hands are really that big? Most people don't realize it, right? So, yeah, right? Thank you, Hollis. But those are the types of things that, well, I could maybe be able to draw a hand. I sure couldn't figure, I didn't know how to determine what the right size is, if my face is this big on my sketch, how big should my hand be? Right? I didn't know that you have 5 eyes across your face. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 5 will always be the same size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So yes,
Wow.
I did take some classes, but they were not quilting classes. They were classes that helped me be able to execute sooner. Because
Yes.
before I would draw, but I would always know something was off.
Ah,
There was an
yes.
imbalance. And so I decided to take in those 3 classes. My girlfriends had said, "Oh my God, it has really, really improved your quilts as a result, because the paces." Now, Hollis says to me she always liked my quilts because of the movement. And I said, "Yeah, Hollis, but don't look too close." One arm is longer than the other. Now I know.
Well, the ladies are really excited in the chat because of how you are sharing that you're an inspiration collector. You collect inspiration in your book. It won't necessarily become a quilt, but it's a source of inspiration for something perhaps that will be a part of a quilt. It inspires you to go to the next level. So I love that, traveling around wherever you were to go to quilt shows, to go to museums. And then when you got stuck, you said, well, let me find some help to accelerate. And so I love that we can find our inspiration and then find a source to help us execute that inspiration. That is a wonderful, wonderful way of putting together a art quilt based on our own passion and desire to share a story. So I love that. Now, I'm curious about some of the other pieces that you have behind you. Since we have you have the screen, let's talk a little bit about what you have behind you.
Sure. So let's see. We're going to start here. All right. And now let's see if I bring this in a little closer. Don't mind my messy desk. You weren't supposed to see that. But you see that you see that bridge?
Yes,
That
yes.
bridge, that bridge was literally a bridge in a picture I took at one of the gardens here in Charleston. And it just was such a serene, calming place that when I started my series on angels, because I'm a firm believer in guardian angels, and so what you see working behind me are one, two, three, four, and maybe you see the fifth one. There was a sixth one, but it's sold. Um, of my angel, these are all in process of my angel quilts because I believe that I would not have gotten to where I am in life if I didn't have a guardian angel looking out for me, right? Helping to guide me. And so I started to do these. And so that one was inspired by the bridge and the uh, third person who wanted to buy the first piece that was already sold. And she's also, and she's in a biracial marriage, and she wanted to reflect both her father, excuse me, her mother and her husband's mother. So that's why you have the different skin tones there. And so that goes into that piece. By the way, it was her mother who was the one who influenced me. And so
Oh.
it actually, to me, I haven't been able to finish it. It was probably done in that stage before all these things behind me even got started. But it needs something special, and I can't move forward because I don't know what it needs yet. I'll have to wait for it to tell me, and I'm fine with that. I let my quilts talk to me. They tell me when they're ready to move. Um, the piece right behind me that we held up a minute ago with the 3D was literally, I have a cousin whose mother-in-law um, was very ill, but she was a very peaceful person. And, you can just sit in her presence and feel the calming effect. And so she has transitioned to be amongst the ancestors. And so this piece is a tribute to her. Um, I'm, really working on my 3D uh, influence in most of my quilts these days. And so the dress will stay loose, the arms will stay loose as well. But this piece will be a tribute to her. She had long hair that she always wore in a braid. So you can see the braid. But since we are descendants of kings and queens and pharaohs, I tried to add that little touch here in her hair.
Wonderful. Wow. This
And
actually
then,
leads me to another question as you share about the others. You've talked about your inspiration and how you started to marry your love of dance with art quilts, and how you then take your inspiration and incorporate it in various quilts. How do you decide on and what's your inspiration for the vibrant colors? Does that come into play?
um, okay, my husband, when I first started out, he said, Renee, that Puerto Rican blood is strong. Strong. I don't know if you've ever heard the old story about, Puerto Ricans, their clothes never match because they wanted to wear the colors. They wanted bright colors, the colors of the party, the fiesta. I don't know. I've always liked bright colors. Shoot, look at my shirt. It's full of color. It's a wave of color. I've always loved bright colors from the time I was a child. Sunburst yellow, um, you know, what do they call it? The orange, the bright orange, tangerine orange. I have love, 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 love colors. And so as I say, I learn to quilt for stress relief and bring me joy. So if something doesn't make my heart sing, I'm not working it. And so for me, it's bright colors.
Well, some quilters, I'm sure they would be curious about how you pick the colors, even though they're bright. Some quilters struggle with putting colors together and color value and things like that so it can really make their vision come to life.
Can you see those? I'm too
Yes.
close. All right. You may not see me, but you should be able to see these. You see that yellow? When they talk about um, art quilts, they always talk about, oh, actually, when they talk about quilts in the color wheel, they always talk about only use a dicey yellow. Boy, was it overpowered. I had to cut, the yellow was wider in both of these pieces. I had to cut the yellow in them both because it was too vibrant, right? And I tell people, don't be afraid to play. Do not be afraid to play. You will find out what works for you. Looking at that piece, it's just like the sun is just going down, right? On one part of the hill, it's wide, but where the hill's up, it's a little sliver. You got to play and balance. And I must have basted that yellow on and off and on and off and on and off until I thought it had enough balance. And so don't be afraid to give it a try. Don't be don't be afraid. You will find the balance. I don't use a wheel, because again, I take a lot of pictures and look to see what colors you see repeating together over and over and over again. Blue, yellow, and orange. Oh my God, they are everywhere, everywhere
Oh.
together. Lime green, blue, lavender, maybe a little deeper purple than lavender. They're everywhere. They're in fabric. They're in, when you go around into model homes, do that. Go into model homes if you're an art quilter. Don't pay much attention to the home, but walk around the model home and see how they decorate. Right? Now, they like to keep things a little sublime,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that will help you understand what the soothing color combinations are, right? And then you learn to take them up. Museums are another place to understand what colors work. So I had no formal art training. No. I have a biology and computer science dual major. All right, that's where my degrees are. There is no art background in there, but because I love it, right, and I love looking at it, I have learned to take that and um, translate it into my own work, right?
I love this because basically you're saying art is all around us, color is all around us. You see something that inspires you, that evokes joy, happiness, something that brings pleasure to your life. The colors, you can take a picture of that to record that and then use it later as part of an art quilt. It seems like that you've done that through uh, model homes, through museums, through all kinds of things. You find inspiration.
Mhm. Gardens, I love to garden. So, how many shades of green are in a garden? It must be 50 million. And people say, oh, you can't have all that green. Why not?
Yes, why not? Yes, now that reminds me, there was something in some of the information I read about you about the quilt police and about being
Oh,
free to play. And I love when you say that. Be free to play. How do you play? What do you do when you say I'm going to go play?
well, the first one we talked about, my sketch pad, right? I never draw out a whole quilt, ever, ever, ever. Most of my quilts come to me in dreams, but they only come to me the central figure and the color, right? And one piece I call Paisley Visions because that's exactly what it was. That dream was so strong that I woke up in the middle of the night and had to write notes. It would not let me sleep, and it wasn't until I wrote it down that I was able to go back to sleep. So definitely, I say sketch. Um, Watch quilting videos. Oh my gosh, my a very important part of my work is my texture that gets created through the quilting, and so I play a lot in preparing for that. I doodle. I doodled as a child. I do it now. I am always doodling quilting designs. I go to Pinterest and I say quilting, free motion quilting designs, and I'll, just scroll through them until I find one I like, and then I just start doodling. I'm trying to recreate that in paper and pencil. So definitely, I play by sketching. I play by free motion quilting, pen and paper. I play by going to the machine and putting a quilt sandwich under it, and it doesn't matter whether it's my domestic or my long arm. Uh, but I'll play by I have no idea what I'm going to do when I sit down, but I play. And now I'm playing with my Inktense pencils, learning
Ah.
how to use them. I've used them for 9, 10 years, but not as extensively now. I use it primarily just for shading. But now, if I don't have the right color fabric, I will take a piece of fabric and I'll experiment adding color to it using different Inktense pencils, and I will go ahead and see if I can create the shade that is in my mind on fabric
Wow.
with Inktense. So play. You see something you like, try it. All right, try
Wow.
mixing
Wow.
dyes, try mixing paint. Uh, you know, just play any way you can. Play. And let me tell you, I've played with a lot of techniques that I do not use. They look gorgeous. I can even create many of them to get them to look like I want them to look, but I don't enjoy the process to get there. Throw it out. Life is too short.
Ah.
If it doesn't bring you joy, if it doesn't make your heart sing, my mother used to hate it when I used to say that. It doesn't make my heart sing. Does it have to sing all the time? Yes.
Yes. I love that, Renee, because in the playing, it's almost like a university of acquiring skills by playing, and then you decide what games or artistic games you enjoy playing, and you employ those so that you can enjoy making your art, expressing your joy. I love that. And you develop the skills over time when you do that as
Yes.
well and
Yeah.
get
And
better
don't
and
say
better.
correct. Don't say it's not good enough because you are, nose to fabric, right? Who else is going to be nose to fabric with your work?
Right. Right.
No one. So
That's so
play.
true.
You
Now,
no one. So play, and you believe in it. You play, you get. It will become better, but it doesn't mean that it's not good to begin with.
right. Exactly. Exactly. We grow in stages, and it's good to look back where we were, how far we've come, and then what we want to do next to develop our journey in our desired quilting experience. I want to share some of the series that you have done. You've talked about the angels, but also there's a series that you'll be teaching at the Houston Quilt Festival. And um, I want to talk, though, about the first couple of series that you did right after you left the corporate world because it wasn't centered on joy, but it was a way to express and perhaps release that so that you can move on to joy. Am I getting that right?
Well, I have two in mind. I'm not quite sure which one you're talking about. But when I left corporate America, my work really took a turn, um, because I could be myself, and I said no more hiding. So I had started my mask series while in corporate America. I wore masks so many times, but I can sort of express that a little more, as I decided to take off my mask. But then also my curvy ladies, because that had been a huge pain for me in corporate America, because of, not only was I female, and was I African American, but I was large. And you know, not everyone has a view that a large woman has a place in the executive ranks of corporate America. So if you're thinking curvy ladies, yeah, that I express things totally different in that series.
Okay, I was thinking about both that you mentioned. One about the mask. I was really intrigued that you took something that was in your life where we all tend to wear a mask in certain situations so that we can get through that situation. And sometimes it's difficult to maintain that facade. And then finally, you're able to release and not have to wear that mask, but yet you took time to recreate some of that mask wearing in art quilts to express that experience.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And do you realize how many reasons we wear masks for? I wasn't until I started thinking about it. How many people really know the real you? Not many. Not many. Let's be honest with ourselves, because I had to be. Um, I had the mask that I wore for 38 years, right? Um, my hair alone, it was, relaxed, right? It was long and straight. It was flowy. It fit the corporate model. Not anymore. So there was a lot, but do you always show your spouse, your partner, your soulmate the true you? No. Um, you hope that that person is the person who you can be yourself with, and probably for most of us we can, for 90 to 95% of the time. But there are times when we put masks up there as well. Uh, there are masks that we wear for our children's sake. There are masks that we wear, as we meet new groups of people, all right? And I had just said to myself, no more. When I retired, I said, no more. I'm going to be Renee. And you know what? I don't care, if people who I thought were my friends for 50 years, um, decide that they can no longer be my friend. Well, you know what? Now it's my time. And so the Mass series really did explore, you know, all the reasons why we wore a mask. And it's still in exploration. I have another one, that I am playing with now. So, yeah.
Okay. So I am fascinated with your collection of series and how you use not one but multiple pieces to help give a broad view of what you're trying to share and to express through the quilts. That one art quilt perhaps might not be enough because there's so many facets and dimensions to that experience. And so I want to move on to the Curvy Lady series, as you mentioned earlier, because this also came out of a result of the corporate experience that you shared a little bit, right? Let's take a look
Hmm.
at them. So here's one. Let's talk about this one.
So I'll set it up by saying the Curvy Lady series is a series that is meant to show the world that because you are round, right, and curvy, does not mean you are lazy, does not mean that you cannot move mountains, does not mean that you don't have the ability to stick it through, to adapt, all right, to influence. And so I chose some adjectives that I believe were important to me as a person, important to me professionally. I think they helped me excel professionally. And then I decided to look for people in the world today that I thought exemplified those adjectives. So this piece is resilient, right? And resilient is inspired by, and I bet many of you can guess, but it's inspired by Stacey Abrams. And Stacey Abrams has seen her star go up and come down and go up again, right? And I think that most people think that she, is done, right? Nah, I don't think so. She is extremely resilient. And so I represent her here in this piece. And believe it or not, you asked a little bit ago about fabric selection. This piece went through, she was made, all right? I didn't know what the background was going to be like. I stumbled on red and I said, oh, yes, okay, red, white, and blue. How, more profound could I be? But I went through 16 different pieces of fabric that I laid her on before I found the right piece of fabric. Right? Of course, it did not have the up and down. Okay, it was the yardage of the red with the gold explosions behind them, almost fireworks. And I looked at it and I said, "Oh, her star is shining bright at the moment." Right, right. She is setting off fireworks in Georgia. Right, and so I chose that background, and then needed to do something to to sort of show the up and down trajectory of her political career, and that's when the chevron, the flame or whatever you call it, I don't remember what you call it, but that's when that graphic came between her and the background, and not because the other reds were different shades of red. Nope, they were the same shade of red. They had different life behind them, right? So for me, it wasn't about color. Right? She's heavily quilted in the background, so it wasn't about the texture. It was about the message I wanted the piece to send.
Mm-hmm.
And 16 reds later, there she is.
Wow. That's good information to share. And I think I'm gleaning that you don't rush the process, that you
Oh no.
allow it to develop and you give yourself room to express and create rather than being on a rush. Yeah, I like that very much. So what about this piece here?
Ah, that piece, my cleaning lady, I had to check her bag every time she left when that piece was on the design wall. That piece is inspired by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Right? She's the Puerto Rican um, part of my series. I have all different nationalities in my Curvy Women's because I don't believe color has any, color or heritage has any play in what you can and can't achieve. And so I want to show us all. And so this piece here, I went back and forth on whether she was going to wear just the leggings or whether she was going to have a skirt or a sarong around her. And without the sarong, just the leggings, she literally spoke to everyone because she has that double belly. You see the little black belly hanging out right there in the front, right above her upper thigh. Oh my gosh. And my cleaning lady was like, oh my God, that's me. And come on, today's generation, they live in their black leggings, right? But, you know, Sonia Sotomayor literally was raised, uh, you know, in the projects in Manhattan, right? Her father had left them. It was her and her mother, and she needed the ability to go to college, prove to everyone that, you know, again, Puerto Ricans are capable of anything. And yet she wanted to stay true to herself, to be an island girl. All right, that's where both of her parents were from. And so this piece actually shows, you know, that little bit of island, the banana tree in the background, the tall grasses, the butterflies, right? And it really does bring a smile to my face.
I love the many textures and colors in it and the dimension that you're able to achieve in your pieces, and this is definitely an example. Even the fabric used for the tree leaves, just really, it's a wonderful piece. I just love the sarong and the little peak of the belly. It's just perfect. I love
Thank you.
everything
And
about it.
thank you. There were 10 fabrics to go through for the sarong. So you're right. I don't rush anything. My
Okay.
pieces have to tell me they are done and what's right. If they don't tell me they're done, they don't get finished.
Okay. Wow. So let's move on to some of the dance. This is the Joy series. Simple Pleasures. Sorry,
Simple
Simple
pleasures.
Pleasures.
So I will tell you that Simple Pleasures was a result of me moving from New York to Charleston, South Carolina, um, literally 2 months after I retired. And I realized that now I had time to enjoy all those little things that we rush to do. We fit into a very busy schedule. And I was in a place that allowed me to enjoy them more months out of the year than New York. So we are water people. We love being on and around the water. You see there, my dancers are still there, but the stream is there and it's glistening with some spray glitter. Um, and so the stream does reflect the sun, the sunset. Thank you, Tango Threads. And yes, these are, you know, just getting outside and enjoying the simple things in life. Um, the people here in South Carolina said, oh, the artist must be Gullah. I don't know if any of you know what Gullah means, but the Gullah Geechee people were those descendants from the slaves brought from West Africa, and they have their own language. And this is very much their style of art, vibrant. And the people are no skin tones, they're always black. Black, solid black paint with bright colored fabric, prints, hats, you know, hats protecting them from the sun. But yes, simple pleasures. I really explored some of the things that we had seen as we moved down here and searched for the beach and the rivers and the marshes in this series.
And the next piece is one of my favorites. It's the beach scene.
Uh, yeah. Fun in the Sun.
Yeah.
Um, this piece was when I was packing up the house in New York. I was going through the boxes and baskets and albums upon albums of photos. And I came across a photo of my grandmother, my mother, um, my three sisters, and one cousin on the beach. Now, my grandmother was a phenomenal woman, absolutely phenomenal woman. She was a home flipper in the 40s and 50s, all right? A black female home flipper. That's how she made her living. Um, but every home that she flipped, she held it for a couple of years, and in the summer held camps for underprivileged children from New York. The only cost to the parent was the child spending money. And in those camps, first it was my parents and her sibling, my mother and her siblings, then it was my older sisters, and then it was my turn to be the camp counselor. And during my turn, we were in Wildwood, New Jersey, on the beach. And so that picture was taken in Wildwood on the beach with my grandmother, and that was the inspiration for this picture. My grandmother in the center, myself, and one of my sisters. We sort of overlapped as counselors.
Wow. I love the detail in each of their swimming outfits, and just it's just amazing how you're able to capture the three-dimensional quality in your work. You also are able to achieve, I've noticed very keenly, to add depth to your pieces. How did you accomplish that?
Ink tense. So there's a lot of shading here that you would not see is shading. But there's a lot of shading in there with ink tense pencils. So underneath the breasts and, in the cleavage area, between the thighs, right, on the sand behind them, very subtly. Um, and yet it's there. It separates them from the sand behind them in the blue sky. You see right at the horizon where the sand meets the sky, again, intense darkening at the edge of the sky to sort of, let us know that it's not, going straight out. It is actually going up. Right. And one thing that I'm a strong believer in putting little things into my work to bring the viewer closer. And I don't know if you can see it here, but on the outer thigh of the girl with what I call thunder thighs, because yes, we all have them in my family, there is a tattoo on her leg, and it's
Ah,
hashtag BLM, Black Lives Matter.
oh,
So
wow.
yeah, detail. There's a gallerist here who actually describes me as the details matter artist because that is
I
part of
love that. That is
It's part of
fabulous.
how I tell the story. Yeah, thank you.
Especially the part that you said you like to draw the viewer in, and you do that with that little bit of detail that is just amazing. I love that. Now, before we go to your website, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what you have ahead, what you are you teaching? I know you're teaching at Houston. Can you share with us what that entails?
Sure. So yes, I do teach in New York. I taught probably more than I do now because I taught a lot of local groups, not necessarily only guilds, but groups who wanted to bring me in. I happen to like to teach in the 8 to 10 size group because I'm a very hands-on teacher. What I teach and the three classes particularly that I'm teaching at Houston, um, I don't provide patterns. I provide what I call to be line drawings because I want you to make the piece your own. All right. So I am teaching these three classes. Pathways is a uh, part of my Pathway series. It's a sea glass path where I talk about how life does not go in a straight line. And sometimes we float along and we just float for a long time. Sometimes we get off the lazy river and we take a path to the right or to the left, but somehow, can either figure out how to get out, right, and get on that straight line and up the border or down the border and move on. And sometimes we just zigzag and end up right back on that sort of curvy path. So Pathways is uses a totally different. It uses dressmakers interfacing and fusible interfacing, and no sewing machine required in the day's class to do all of that blue, green, blue centerpiece. And then you add borders when you go home. But it is all done without a sewing machine. That piece, you leave one piece altogether. We talked about my mask time series, and there are many different masks that I offer the students in the class, and they can work on whichever one. But again, helping them make that line drawing theirs, right? Some people will combine elements of the mask using different printed fabrics. Some people will actually, separate elements of the mask because they want it to be theirs. But my goal is to make sure that your mask does not look like the mask next to you. Right. So that's why I typically prefer a smaller class. I can sit down and help and guide them. Warrior Woman, this was my first series, my first official series. And I was still working, and yeah, I felt like I had to be a warrior every single day. And because I had a global role, what that warrior looked like depended on the country I was standing in at the time. Um, so yeah, you can't go to Japan and be big, bad, and bold, which is what I used to always say to myself. I'm here. I'm here to fix things. But not in Japan. As a female, you weren't big, bad, and bold in Japan. So that warrior looked totally different. Totally different. One of my pathways is based off of my Japan um, visits. It's shaped like a kimono.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so I'll be teaching these three classes um, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. All three of them are full day, and none of them require a sewing machine. They are learning my various applique techniques, and I use a different technique in all three classes.
And this is at the Houston Quilt Festival in November. What are the dates?
It is the third. I always say the 30th, but it's not the 30th. It is the 31st of October, Halloween, and November 1st and 2nd.
Okay. I encourage you ladies to go visit her website. You can check out her galleries and look at more of her series. She also will soon have some greeting cards where you can get her work on greeting cards and share them as perfect cards to share with your quilting friends. I love it. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much. You have inspired us. I know I've been inspired, and the ladies did have some questions. I know we are ready at the top of the hour. Do you have another 5 minutes to answer a question or two?
Absolutely.
Okay. We did have a question from Lori about your piece from about Abrams and whether or not you have shared your artwork with people who are real people. Do they know that it exists?
I've tagged all that series. Thanks, Laura. I have tagged all 8 of the people who are used as inspiration in my pieces on my work. Have I sent them to them directly? No, I have not. The one piece that is inspired by Coretta Scott King has been purchased by the York Bailey Museum at the Penn Center on St. Helena Island, and it will hang in the cottage where Martin Luther King actually wrote and practiced his oration of his I Have a Dream speech.
Wow.
So it's publicly known that they're out there. Have they seen them? I don't know.
Okay. Fantastic. Now, what
Oh,
other way?
thank you, Kay.
Yeah, yes. Yes, isn't that nice? That's Kimberly. Thank you, Kimberly.
thanks,
Very
thanks, Kimberly.
um if ladies want to recommend you to their guild or take a class with you outside of Houston, what other ways can they connect with you?
Yes, so quilted artistry at Gmail, always the easiest way. It's my email, quiltedartistry at Gmail. My website is quiltedartistry by Renee.com. And there is a section that says, contact Renee, contact me. And you click on that, and it will, you'll fill out a form, and I will usually get back within 24 hours, sometimes 48, but never more than that. And then I am a big Instagrammer. I am always on Instagram. And my Instagram is Quilted Artistry. So, come talk to me on Instagram. You'll see a lot of my work, reels. Um, the fact that I'm on here tonight is on the reel on Instagram. So, social media, email, my website. Reach out
Okay.
to me. I love to come. I love to teach in person. This Zoom stuff, I do it, but I prefer to be in person.
Okay, fantastic. And if you ladies didn't know, she is full faculty at Houston, and kudos to them for having Renee at the show. I'm so thankful that you'll have an opportunity to share your gifts and talents with the women in Houston this year. Thank you, Renee, for giving us so much of your time. If is there any one last thing that you would like to share to encourage those who want to be a part of art quilting, to stitch stories?
Well, I guess it's the same thing that I opened with, right? We all have something that we're passionate about, and find what talks to you, what brings you joy, what makes your heart sing, and sit there and play. I guarantee you, someone has tried it, someone's posted it on the internet. So if you get stuck, I used to stalk three quilters. That's what I call them, stalk, and they were fabulous because I would hit them up on social media. So if you get stuck, quilters are sharing people. Reach out. Just don't be afraid to ask.
Yes, yes. And I found you on Instagram and I reached out and said, "Will you come on Quilt Conversations Live?" And I'm so glad you said yes. This has been a fabulous time. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank
quite
you.
welcome.
I think that's it for all the questions. And so much success to you in the next series that you'll be working on. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh yeah, my dreams haven't told me yet. I'll finish the Angels and then I'll know.
Okay, Renee, take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Wow, was that a fabulous hour, ladies? Thank you for staying a little bit longer to make sure you know how to connect with Renee, to see her work. Please visit her website and see the list of galleries and other places where you can see her work, the classes you can take with her, and she said, connect with her. If you have a question, just send her an email. She is a sharing a quilter and wants to help you in your journey and recommend her for your guild. Uh, Renee was a fabulous guest and was so generous with her time. So I thank you, Renee, for being with us today on Quilt Conversations Live. All right, ladies, I just want to remind you that I will be teaching next month at the American Quilter Society Quilt Show in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'll be teaching several ruler quilting classes. Don't forget to let others know if they are interested in learning how to quilt with a straight line for beginners, how to use a clamshell ruler, a circle ruler, and other rulers that are just fun to learn how to quilt our projects. And you can use rulers for art quilts because they can stitch some of those designs that you need help with. So they're not just for regular bed quilts, they can be used for art quilts. And I will have one free motion quilting class. This is an all day session where we learn how to go from practice to quilt. We will concentrate on two designs, spirals and swirls, and then how to put those designs into this star quilt. I am so excited that I had an opportunity to share with you another Quilt Conversations live. We will be back on the first Friday of September, and I can't wait to see you then. So thank you, Marsha, Lori, Rochelle. Thank you, Simply Spoiled. Everyone had a wonderful time. They're thanking Renee. Yes, you're welcome, Deneen. You're welcome, Lori. Thank you, ladies. And Sharon, thank you for being here. And Lorraine, I'll see you next time for another Cook Conversations Live.